Software developer, you are a fighter. You've trained for this. You have won challenges that lesser humans have called unwinnable. And as you sharpened your skills, do you know how Jenkins prepared for today? We transformed the way we deliver software. We brought forth new powers to help you vanquish the obstacles you face every day. Powers that help you with new, scalable, continuous delivery for Kubernetes. Powers to help you optimize Jenkins for the cloud. Powers that get you closer to fully automated Jenkins configuration. Powers that give you continuous delivery for Jenkins itself. Powers that give you the speed and agility you need to deliver the world's software. With Jenkins transformed, our mission is a success.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage CloudBees Chief Technology Officer, Kohsuke Kawaguchi.
Wow. You know, I've been doing this more than a decade, but I always love getting in front of the people, like in occasion like this. It's because I really love talking about all the awesome things that's happening in the Jenkins community. Now, speaking of spreading the love of what's going on in the Jenkins community, the first thing I wanted to recognize is these 10 people, which I'm honored to nominate. I'm honored to recognize as the Jenkins ambassadors. So these are the people around the world spreading what's going on in the Jenkins community to practitioners and users. And in this event, many of them are here, and they are walking around with the ambassador, the costume. So if you see them walking around, go up to them, give them the encouragement that they deserve, and then have some conversations. Now, when we talk to people about what's going on in the Jenkins community, it's not a one-way street. The other important part is for us, people in the community, to learn how you're using or not using Jenkins. So, as always, we've been running a community survey this year. So you can go to the URL that's on the screen, and then you can fill in the details. And it will really help us inform the direction of the project, where we need to spend effort, so on and so forth. So, you know, as I said, I've been doing this for more than a decade now at this point. But this year, it's one of the most difficult times for me to put the content together, because there's actually so much going on in the Jenkins project. It's probably the single most year in which many innovations are happening. And then, because why is that happening? Well, it's because last year I made this pitch that our software development industry is evolving rapidly. And I know you're feeling that yourself. So we, at the Jenkins project, recognized that we needed to evolve too, to keep up with the growing demand and the higher standard that you hold us to. So that's exactly what we've been working on for the past year. Right? We've been transforming Jenkins, adding all the new capabilities so that it can give you the superpowers that you need to deliver software faster and more productively. And not only we are working on one project, but we are working on whopping 5 projects at the same time, just to name the big ones. So today what I wanted to go is kind of give you the quick overview of these 5 superpowers that you're getting from the Jenkins. And then in the hope that there will be more sessions later today and tomorrow to talk about these things as well. So the first one I'm going to start with is the first transformational project that we took on in the Jenkins project, and that's called Pipeline. I think this has been going on for maybe 4 years at this point, and it became this bread and butter of the platform to run all sorts of automations on Jenkins. So as something that's foundational, and it's very important for the Jenkins, we've been working on this iterative improvements, the continuous improvements to the Jenkins pipeline, one bug fix at a time, one pull request at a time as well. But we are also looking for and looking at the opportunities to do more transformational changes to the pipeline itself. So there's a project underway to explore the possibility of redoing the deep cuts of the pipeline execution system that removes many of the key challenges and frictions, improve the isolations, performance, things like that. So not only when that delivers so much more to you, it also simplify the way we maintain this code base, so it's goodness all around. Now, speaking of this foundational project, another foundational transformational project that we took on is probably Blue Ocean. This one has been going on for a couple of years now, and I hope by now everyone is using it, and I've been hearing a great positive feedback from those who are using Blue Ocean. So I think this initial stage of this rocket has been very, very successful. So now I'm thinking about what does it take to get the second stage of this rocket ignited, to get to the stratosphere. And I think in Jenkins project, we have a key, we know how to do it. We have a DNA for doing certain things to catapult the success to the next level. And to me, that is the extensibility. So my call to the project, the people who are working in the Blue Ocean project is if you can allow the users to do more with Blue Ocean by allowing plugin developers to add more so that you can spend more time in Blue Ocean, less in classic UI, then that would be a good thing. So I know there's a work that's being explored in this space as well. The other thing, and then perhaps this is why you are not hearing a lot about Blue Ocean nowadays, is we are trying to lose a separate identity of Blue Ocean, right? If you think about it, the plugin manager, dashboard, none of these things in Jenkins has a distinctive name. It's just such an integral part of Jenkins that it does not need any name. I think the time has come that the Blue Ocean should do the same. It should just become the user interface for Jenkins, and we don't need to refer to it as a code name Blue Ocean. So that's hopefully what's going to be happening soon. So the next superpower that I wanted to talk about is the Jenkins Evergreen. And this is a relatively new project that's been started at the beginning of this year about that. So what the Jenkins Evergreen is a radical simplification of Jenkins. Because back when continuous delivery or the continuous integration used to be a thing that the developers ran under the desk on their own computer, but now it's mainstream that everyone is trying to do. And as it spreads to the many people and it becomes an integral part of the daily life of the developers, the bar of expectation is getting higher. Right? We need to make this easier to use. We need to make the Jenkins more accessible and all that stuff. So that's what the mission of the Evergreen. So what we are trying to do with the Evergreen is to create a pre-assembled batteries included distribution of Jenkins, something that the new user can pick up and be productive within 5 clicks and 5 minutes, which is that's the way I kind of try to describe how easy it needs to be to the community. And not only it helps the onboarding, but it also needs to simplify the ongoing overhead of running Jenkins. So my goal here is to make Jenkins on par or better with the continuous integration as a service. So how do we do that? I think it starts from defining a different boundaries around Jenkins. So historically, we used to think of Jenkins as this thing in the core and then a whole bunch of plugins on top, right? But I think now in the 2018, this is the wrong way to look at it. I think we need to think about what modern continuous delivery experience needs to be in 2018. And I think that will include things like GitHub integrations, Docker support, the Kubernetes support, and stuff like that. And then we, the Jenkins community, needs to be responsible for assembling all the functionalities necessary to deliver modern continuous delivery experience. And I'm sure that consists of the core and a whole bunch of plugins. But the point is the brighter lines, as I call it, the bigger line that we need to draw is around that functionality, not so much the core and plugins. So by taking on a bigger responsibility like that, one of the things that we can do is to provide more automatic, sane, reasonable default, reducing manual configurations, make sure that when it runs in the right, certain target platform, say like, the AWS or the Azure or the GCP, then it leverages the capabilities of the underlying platform, and it provides a greater onboarding experience and things like that. So all of that is possible by integrating these pieces more closely, and that collectively allows us to guide users to more obvious paths to success. We want you to just naturally use the software to get to the successful state of using Jenkins, as opposed to feeling like you have to figure everything out on your own as you go. Now, the other key part of the Evergreen is that it's a connected, self-upgrading software appliance, kind of like Google Chrome, where it's updating behind the scene without you spending any effort. So everything within that brighter line is going to be on us to manage and deliver you the upgrade. And then in that way, we get to take off the biggest administrative overhead off your plate. Right? Using Jenkins becomes one of those like a long road trip where you just need to keep driving straight. There's no bumps, there's nothing, and then it becomes so smooth that it gets boring. And that's the world that we are trying to take you to. And this idea of auto-upgrading Jenkins might sound a little scary if you're using Jenkins for a long time. But I truly believe that it's a more reliable way for us to deliver, a better way for us to deliver reliable software for you. Right? Because you'll be running exactly the same configuration that we tested, and it's also the same configuration that everyone else is running. We are monitoring what's going on in your instances, so when things go bad, we can take proactive actions like rollback. There are other defense in-depth mechanisms in place, like testing after the boot up, the automatic rollback of the failure, snapshotting of the configuration. All of these mechanisms designed to provide you a stable Jenkins experience. And I think that's much better than the state of the art today, which is you upgrade instances, you hope that it works, and then when some problem happens, you're the one that's going to have to discover it. So all of these efforts are designed to basically create a very fast and stable Jenkins experience, kind of like a commercial aviation needs, right? This thing that you take on every day, like I hop onto the airplane to come here. I haven't thought twice about it, but it's kind of going in mid-air close to the speed of the sound. And if it crashes down, like I'll be dead in no time without knowing it, but I don't think about these things, right? It's completely safe and boring to the point that I doze off inside the airplane. So that's the world of the Jenkins usage experience that we are trying to get to. So Evergreen is great for the new users and existing users alike. But existing users are in for more treats because we are giving you even more superpowers. And that is the configuration code effort, the next superpower that I wanted to talk about. So in order to understand what this superpower is about, I want you to think about what if you could apply the same reasonable, the continuous delivery practices, change control practices around the configuration of Jenkins itself. Meaning you can propose a change in the form of git commit, have a code review, discuss that change with the peers, merge the change, and then get that deployed. And then if there's any problem in that, you can safely roll back. Right? You do the same. You do this for your source code and for your application. Why can't you do that with your Jenkins as well? Or what if you don't need to feel like the Jenkins is Snowflake, right? Because you have the precise record of why every part of Jenkins is put together that way, by who, when, for what reason. And then so that allows you to make a change in confidence. Or what if there's a special part of the configuration management called the upgrade Like, what if you can always safely roll back the failed upgrade because you always keep track of the precise set of the plugins and Jenkins that you deployed? Or what if a lot of teams inside the organization is coming on board with the CD practice, and then you can cookie cutter the exact same blessed configuration of Jenkins as many times as you need to create the big pool of the automation capabilities. So these are the superpowers that we are giving to you with the configurations code. You can do all of those by basically just writing a configuration file in YAML and then put that in the Git repository, like one of those. And then you can describe everything from the plugins to security to agents to tools and whatever have you. And this project is aiming toward providing a great authoring experience to help you write this kind of file productively. And then all you have to do is to launch Jenkins in a Docker container, pointing to that configuration file, and then you have this precise state of Jenkins the way you want it, always, all the time. And then as a CTO of CloudBees, I'm also very happy that this is the effort that exemplifies the power of the open source community. This is a space that we knew for the longest time, so we worked on for quite some time. Well, many people worked on it for quite some time, but what made the difference this time is we, the CloudBees, and Pragma, another corporate participant in the Jenkins project, were able to join hands together so that we can collectively push this important project forward. And once we provide this kernel of effort, then the rest of the community kind of built around that, and we were able to provide we were able to pack a much bigger punch above our weight. So this project has already been 1.0, actually 1.2 now, so it's been evolving rapidly, and I love to have you give it a try. All right, then the next superpower that the Jenkins is working toward giving you is the cloud native Jenkins. So what we are trying to do here is I want you to think about the world where the Jenkins kind of runs for itself, right? You can take a vacation. You as a Jenkins administrator can take a vacation a day before the release. And then Jenkins will be happily holding the fort while you're vacationing in the beach in Nice. Or what if you can take off in the evening and then pick up the kids, again, every day, any day, and the Jenkins will be in the office working for you. You don't get called back to the office because Jenkins is down or somebody needs the upgrade or whatever. And then that's the cloud. I think that would be really awesome. And that's what the cloud native Jenkins is trying to give you. Another thing to think about the value of the cloud native Jenkins is what if you don't have to do any of the sophisticated upfront capacity planning or the deployment planning for your Jenkins, right? You just kind of put it out there, run it. And as the more and more automation happen in the team and more teams come on board onto your bigger Jenkins deployment, it keeps scaling up. And the only thing increasing is going to be a cost that you pay for the cloud provider for the compute and storage and whatnot. But you don't have to do any of the major architecture change or deployment change or stuff like that in order to scale up to the entire automation workload of the largest of the corporations. So those are the goals for the cloud native Jenkins. And it is kind of important, right? And then it's an ambitious goal, but we think we can totally get there by removing things like this file system-based storage or the fact that the Jenkins currently has this master process, which is a single point of failure. So this effort has already been started. It also has begun at about the same time, the Jenkins Evergreen. And then some of the work has already landed onto your Jenkins, maybe even though you might not be using those capabilities. So for example, now you can store the artifacts into the cloud native data storage like Amazon S3, and then the work has begun to store the log files into the similar managed data services. So these are in a way just the beginning of the work, but between those two things, they are the most bulky read-only data that your Jenkins produces. So when you move these things off to the suitable storage, you immediately get to enjoy the cheap storage cost, the better scalability, the performance, and all that sort of stuff. And as with everything else we do in the Jenkins project, this is pluggable, right? So even though I only mentioned the S3, the Amazon's managed services, it's relatively easy to other plugins to come and then support the similar or comparable services on other cloud providers as well. And then the more of the work, it's going to come soon. What we are trying to get to is to create essentially a cloud-native distribution of Jenkins. It's a different packaging, different flavor, different components of Jenkins wired together, creating highly available distributed Jenkins that runs very well on Jenkins, on the Kubernetes. And it uses this Jenkins as a serverless function as a service style execution mode. And those of you who are technical can see why this kind of way of running makes it very scalable and isolate the failures and so on and so forth. And then hopefully with the other superpowers combined, like Evergreen and configuration code, wiring together to make the great user experience. So this might seem like an ambitious goal, but I actually think the initial MVP is sooner than you might think, because you can focus on the the initial subset of the capabilities, such as not having any user interface, because I know for the fact that the many Jenkins users are already running Jenkins like that. And then over time, we can add back more, and then gradually reveal the Jenkins that today people know and love. So this is such an important project. And then there's an incredible amount of the traction that's happening in the Jenkins community, not from just the users, but the people, and the participants like CloudBees. And then so we are forming this special interest group, Cloud Native SIG, in order to drive this work further. So today I wanted to bring 2 of the members of this Cloud Native SIG, they represent the companies, and so that we can hear why this is important effort for them. So on that note, please welcome Kim from Google and Yuan from Microsoft. All right, thank you very much for coming on stage.
Hi.
So Kim, the Google and the CloudBees and Jenkins have been working together in this Cloud Native SIG setup for I think a good while now. If you can tell us a bit about why the Cloud Native and Jenkins are important for Google, that'd be great.
Sure. So Google loves Jenkins and Kubernetes. The K in my name actually stands for Kubernetes, and people call me K1M for short. So Google's transformed the industry by bringing containers and Kubernetes to the market. So we're super excited to see projects like Jenkins X leverage Kubernetes and also be cloud native. So just as Kubernetes has changed the way the applications are developed by providing a standard way that you interact with the APIs, we have the similar goal to do the same thing with cloud-native CI/CD pipelines. That is, we want to provide standard components, APIs, and definitions so that everyone can describe and build their cloud-native CI/CD pipelines in an interoperable way. So we've kicked off this effort with a few partners, and my colleague Dan is giving a talk here in Nice about cloud-native CI/CD pipelines. So please check it out to learn more. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And yeah, that's kind of closer.
Thank you.
So the Microsoft and Jenkins projects also go way back, and I know different teams in Microsoft in China working on this, all sorts of interesting stuff. So I really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Now you can tell us a bit about why the Cloud Native and Jenkins are important for Microsoft. That'd be also great.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for having us here today as well. We've been an active participant in the Cloud Native SIG. Largely because a lot of our customers that want to use are using Jenkins, and they also want to use our cloud, the Azure cloud platform. So we're seeing a lot of interest in customers that want to move to the native mode, where they obviously don't have dependencies on infrastructure that they have to manage and so on. So we've been working on releasing an Azure Artifact Manager plugin, which will be available within about the next month. It's in private preview at the moment, so if you're an Azure user yourself and you want to get access to it, then just either stop me or anyone from CloudBees and we can get you access to that. But we're also working with CloudBees on a bunch of interesting things as well, particularly around Kubernetes support. And again, we've got a lot of enterprise customers that are moving into the cloud, and many of them are existing Microsoft customers that are going to use Azure in some way. So we want to give them as good an experience as we possibly can in their DevOps environment, and particularly when it comes to Jenkins and with CloudBees.
Cool. All right, thank you very much,
Great.
and I'm
you.
looking forward
Thank
to
you very
more
much.
productive collaborations in the Cloud Native SIG. Thank you. All right, so moving right on, the last but not least, the superpower that we are working on is the Jenkins X. Right? I had to do this. Unless you have been hiding under the rock, you must have known that in this industry, it's kind of like a storm is gathering, which is the Kubernetes, right? It's becoming this de facto cloud-native operating system, I think of. And then there's a lot to like, and in particular for me, one that's close to my heart is this extensibility. I see the same kind of ingredients that made Jenkins successful in Kubernetes. I'm kind of rooting for that as well. And then so I know a lot of teams have posed to figure out how to best leverage this new capability into their development process. But it's not very easy. Right? This is a new technology, and as a practitioner, I also I like tinkering with this new technology as well. But you have to install and operationalize the Kubernetes, and you have to survey this rapidly evolving ecosystem to figure out the right tools and services to incorporate, to wire together. And obviously, your app needs to move to containers, and probably need to be divided up too. And then you need to figure out how to divide those containers. How to deploy these containers to Kubernetes. Are you going to do it through the pod file or the Helm chart or whatever else? And then you have to wire up all the automations around them so that the source code changes happening here eventually results in running application over there. And then it's not just about the tools. You have to figure out the way your teams work together, so like best practices of software development. So how does your software delivery processes work? Okay, how do you move the bits from the one environment to another? This thing called GitOps you might have heard of. Is it the time to embrace that in your team, or is it a little too far-fetched for you guys? How do you best deal with the secrets? There are so many different ways to do it. What's the right way? Right? And that's the kind of key question, like what is the right way? You can wire them all together you want, and I'm fully confident that you're capable. But you always wonder, like, did I do it right? Did I miss out something that other people knew? And then that's always this feeling that you kind of have to fight against, right? So the way I see it, you can have fun tinkering, opening up the Carbon net and working on the details and get your hands dirty to figure this all out yourself. Or you can let us do all the work and basically just pick up Jenkins X and be immediately productive. Because what the Jenkins X is trying to do is to figure out the people in the Jenkins community who lives and die in the Kubernetes, well, they don't die, but who live and breathe in the Kubernetes, they figure out the best practices of how to continuously deliver the cloud-native web applications on Kubernetes, and then wire all the tools and so on, right? So here I'm not talking about just the build and test, but the entire life cycle that spans from the code review to promotion to change logs to collaboration among team members. And then, we integrate the best of the breed tools in the ecosystem to meet that demand. And then hide all of that behind a very pleasant and convenient command line interface. And that's the one that your developers in your team is going to interact with. And this talks in terms of the high-level abstract concept. So people in your team doesn't really need to be an expert of the Kubernetes, but they can still leverage the power of the Kubernetes. So what enables this is the fact that Jenkins X is opinionated, meaning it tells you what's the best way to run what's the best way to utilize the Kubernetes to do a cloud-native web app development. And then by doing all that, I think it puts the Kubernetes into where it should be, which is the means to the end, where your end is to deliver awesome applications more rapidly to your customers. So I mentioned about Jenkins X being opinionated. So what it does is it creates these best practices. It's all baked into the Jenkins X. Now, the great thing is that we didn't have to invent any of these the best practices. It's by and large the convergence of the existing practices that our industry has collectively discovered, I'd say, in the past decade or so. So surprisingly, when you pick up Jenkins X, you will feel right at home. It feels very old and warm. There's nothing that sets you aback. because all of these concepts that you discover in there is something you're used to. But at the same time, it's utterly new and exciting because all these familiar concepts that you're used to is allowing you to leverage the latest innovations in the technology landscape, that is Kubernetes and cloud-native web app development. So another way to think about this is if you think about the Jenkins as this general purpose, very flexible CI/CD system, it's kind of like a road network, right? You're in the driver's seat, and you can truly get to anywhere in the world. You just need to, you can turn in any corner, and you're in control. You can choose the destinations. You have that flexibility. In contrast, Jenkins X is a bit more like a high-speed rail. It only gets to one destination, cloud-native web application development. But it's a very, very popular destination that a lot of people are trying to get to. And all you have to do to get there is to show up to the train station. And then the train would come, and you hop on board, and you can sit back and relax and let the train take you. And then you'll get there in no time. So that's what we are trying to do in the Jenkins X, is really to provide this opinionated experience to make you get to the cloud-native web application development so much faster. So that was the kind of quick tour of these 5 superpowers that we are working to give to you. And the great thing about those is they are designed to work together. Like, I describe them as independent projects, but they are not really happening in vacuum. For example, the cloud configurations code and cloud-native Jenkins are trying to collectively create this stateless way of executing and running Jenkins. Blue Ocean and configurations code is kind of splitting the battlefield to 2 parts. The configurations code will essentially take away this large amount of user interface surface from the Jenkins. So that allows the Blue Ocean to limit the fight. Cloud-native Jenkins and the Jenkins X obviously are designed to work together side by side. And the Evergreen and Jenkins X are both on different ways to make Jenkins easier and more accessible to a new set of people who haven't used Jenkins before. Right? So those are the ways I think the superpowers are kind of converging to collectively tell a bigger story. And then in doing so, I think we are really transformed Jenkins. I don't want you to think of, like, Jenkins used to be maybe the core and a bunch of plugins that you put together, but now it's becoming so much more. Like, when you use Jenkins X, you will not see the core and plugin, you will see the command line interface. When you see the Evergreen, you don't really see the distinction between the plugin and core all that more clearly, or obviously. So those are the changes that we are just beginning in the Jenkins project. And more of this work is going to continue in the coming days and months. So stay tuned for that. Now, these are all ambitious efforts. Like I said, many of these efforts are already usable, but we got all the ambitious goals, and there are a lot more work to be done. So that takes collaborations in the community. And as I said, the CTO of CloudBees, I'm very happy that we are putting the money where our mouth is. So we are working in all of these 5 efforts, but it has to be a community-wide effort. And when I say the community-wide effort, I don't just mean people writing code into these projects. I also mean users, each one of you in this room, who we are trying to give you the superpower. I need you to use these superpowers to solve the challenges that you face, and then report back to us how it worked or it didn't. And in that feedback cycle, that's how the Jenkins project has been evolving for the past more than a decade. And then that's how we get this resiliency and strength to keep moving forward. Right? So we lean on you to give us that feedback cycle. So that's the next responsibility that we have. And in this day and tomorrow, you'll be hearing from people involved in these efforts, your other fellow practitioners, and then go talk to them, have conversation about them, so that you can figure out how you can harness this effort. Your Jenkins is not the same as your father's Jenkins. And I hope so you'll take advantage of these 2 opportunities. The opportunity for the next few days. And on that note, I wanted to end my presentation. Thank you very much.